is truly a blessing.
Well, we're in this thing together, and you're a brave man for putting truth out into the airwaves. Everybody won't do that. So we have to keep doing that, and the more we do it, we just see that people are beginning to hear truth and respond.
Did everybody just hear that? Alveda King called me brave. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Gene.
I love this interview so much. It's one of my favorite interviews from the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
And there you have it, folks. Now here's your chance to win. If you were listening closely to the interview with Dr. Alveda King, you heard... Why are you laughing, Russ Gallo? Hold on a second here. Are we getting too real for radio now? Is that what this is?
You quipped of how she referred to you as brave.
Because I do a radio show.
But I was kind of giggling because I think you referred to yourself as little old Gene.
You know what? Okay, you got me there.
Follow little old Gene, by the way, at G. Baradelli.
And follow Russ Gallo at Russ Gallo on the Twitters. And while you're on the internet, because you know you're on the internet, because this is sometimes internet radio, and sometimes AM radio.
And sometimes it's just me and Gene talking for an hour, realizing we weren't recording anything at all.
That has happened too. Check out www.behindamielines.radio.us. I screwed up the plugs, but whatever. Here's your question, folks, about the interview. Dr. Alveda King was in Philadelphia, but she didn't get a chance to see Pope Francis. But what was she invited to do instead? Tweet us at BEL_radio or email me at gbaradelli@gmail.com. There you have it. First person to respond, either not Russ, stop trying to respond because you can't win. First person to respond gets the book. There you have it. So now, Russ, while we're waiting to see if we're going to get a winner, we also had the opportunity to participate in a very short, extremely short, very tiny press conference with Mike Huckabee. Didn't get to ask anything because they literally dragged him away in under 5 minutes. Shocking, I know. But he was in his glory. This was Value Voters after all. Take a listen to Governor Huckabee. Oh, wait, but before we do...
Yeah, before we do, in the spirit of acting like all the other media outlets, I have a quick question for you about Value Voters. We got to bring Trump into this before Huckabee goes.
Trump was there.
I'd like to ask you a question, because I saw one clip on the news where Donald Trump, I believe, referred to Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, as a clown. And I couldn't tell, were those boos, oohs, ahs, what were they? What was the reaction to that?
I was saying boo-earns. No, they were boos.
So Trump got booed.
Trump got booed at Value Voters. Not only did he get booed, he finished in 5th place in the straw poll there. Ted Cruz took the straw poll, and Ben Carson was 2nd.
So Donald Trump is not a pious man? Is that what we're saying?
That's what they're saying. Carly Fiorina, who wasn't even there, finished ahead of Donald Trump. And Carly Fiorina not being there, by the way, a big story of Value Voters. She was in Greenville, South Carolina, signing copies of her book and speaking before a crowd of 1,000 people, when she could have been at Value Voters and before a crowd of close to 3,000. But I guess she's just going to be a moderate, or maybe this is the first sign that maybe Carly is not who you think she is.
I've never been a big fan. I agree with everything Donald Trump says about her.
All right, then. Wow. Was that a shoe that just flew by
here? That was
here?
a little tongue-in-cheek,
Okay.
but go ahead.
Well, listen, back on topic, because we're running low on time. Here's the press conference we participated in. I'm not going to say interview because we were just standing there with Governor Mike Huckabee. I'm going to get his name right sooner or later. Governor Mike Huckabee. Take a listen to this, folks.
Oh, the angry mob.
Governor, do you believe the president this week, when he was with the Pope and he said he supported religious liberty?
Well, I'd love to see a little bit of it practiced. I'd love to see religious liberty practiced for the Little Sisters of the Poor. I'd love to see it practiced for the Green family of Hobby Lobby. I'd love to see religious liberty exercised for Kim Davis and Aaron and Melissa Klein. If he really believes in it, then he needs to turn the Justice Department loose in defending the religious liberty of people whose faith has been completely trampled upon by overreaching government actions.
Do you think that Republicans can nominate somebody who supports open borders when it comes to immigration trade policies? And what do you think about the fact that Marco Rubio is an open borders immigration and trade person?
You know, I never try to second guess what Republican voters will do. I've been wrong several times in the past. I was wrong back in 2008. I was pretty sure they were going to nominate me, and they didn't. And this time I'm pretty sure they will nominate me, and I hope I'm right. So, you know, what they do is up to the voters, and there are a lot of dynamics that go into that. But I'll continue to talk about my issues and not get into throwing rocks at somebody else.
What was your reaction to John Boehner stepping down?
What's that?
What was your reaction to Speaker Boehner stepping down, and who would you like to see replaced?
Well, what I said in my speech, if you heard it, I said, apparently, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but there are reports that he had a very private meeting with the Pope, just the two of them, and he came from that meeting and decided it was time to step down. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Pope Francis and the President will get together again for a very private, intimate meeting before he leaves the country.
Governor, there have been a lot of conservatives here celebrating the news that John Boehner is stepping down. Do you think that Mitch McConnell should also step aside and let a new conservative
The
come
senators will make that decision.
But if you had your way...
Would you encourage him to meet with the Pope?
Good question.
But if you had your way, do you think somebody more conservative should take
Look,
over
I'm
the Senate?
disappointed in both houses. I'm disappointed that they haven't done what we sent them here to do. We sent them to put the brakes on executive overreach. I was disappointed they supported Trans-Pacific Partnership. I'm disappointed that all of the Republicans who are in the Senate supported that. I'm disappointed that they supported the Corker-Cardin bill that empowered the president to get the Iranian deal through.
So is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Well, it's time for new leadership in the country. I know that much. And maybe with new leadership in the White House, the House and the Senate will be able to have leadership that they can clearly follow.
Governor, how much of that was their fault?
I'm sorry, what?
How much of that was their fault? Did they overpromise in 2010, 2014 when they said we're going to try to do this to the president? How much of it was their fault that they didn't repeal Obamacare?
I don't want to get into the blame game. I just know that when people sent them here, they didn't send them to give the president more power on Obamacare, immigration, and even trade, and certainly not the Iranian deal. I know on those four areas alone, the president got more power and the Congress didn't exercise much. So, I'm just looking at what I can see. If there were more things that were under the surface, those things were very much above the surface. We saw them all, and it frustrated the heck out of most of us who had gone out there and helped to get these guys elected.
Russ, that might be the strongest I've heard Mike Huckabee in a real long time. Probably not as strong as he's been since he won in Iowa the last time he ran.
The bar is low. Strongest Huckabee's been. He still won't say Mitch McConnell should go. I bet you if you poll the majority of primary voting Republicans across the country, it's time for McConnell to go. And if the guy who wants to be the leader of our party and the leader of this country can't say that, then it's the wrong guy for the job. One who claims to be conservative, by the way. I'm not going to say that's a litmus test issue for any of our candidates, but if you're running as a person who claims to be a conservative, especially a religious conservative, and you can't say that a guy like Mitch McConnell needs to go, then you're just being fraudulent.
Well, here's a perfect example of Congress playing to the crowd instead of passing legislation and taking a stand. How did they try to defund Planned Parenthood, Russ? Through a continuing resolution. Not through a standalone bill that just needed a simple majority. They did it through a continuing resolution that required the supermajority in the U.S. Senate. I wonder if that means Mitch McConnell really didn't want to defund Planned Parenthood. What do you think on that? That to me is what the signal is.
Of course they didn't want to defund Planned Parenthood. The majority of Republicans in leadership positions, which McCarthy is one of them in the House, he was the majority leader in the House, they're liberal on a lot of issues. Or they go along to get along, and that's just as bad as being a liberal in my view, because you have no backbone, no core principle. You have this administration, which every day, Gene, I am believing more and more is actively working to destroy the country. 7 years ago we used to debate whether they were just incompetent or they might have some nefarious,
personal thing, not really a macro thing, a micro thing, something that would affect them and others. Not like the whole nation would be transformed.
But I'm now in the camp where I think that the administration itself does have an agenda that is anti-American, and the Republicans in Congress are basically co-conspirators. They're complicit at the very least. They're aiding this administration, and they're certainly not opposing it. So, guilt, in my view.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks Good evening, to Rev. You, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwindling, they do not want him dwindling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney. Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, when Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Listen, it's been a jam-packed show. We actually have to get up out of here. For all you Al Sharpton fans out there, sorry about that. Get your Reverend Al fix next week, I hope. When we play some of his greatest hits from his now weekend show. Russ, final thought time. This is where you get to get back up on that soapbox, my brother.
Mark it. I made this prediction before, but it's coming closer and closer to becoming reality. Hillary Clinton doesn't make it the distance, will not be the nominee, and very likely could find herself indicted prior to the 2016 election.
All right, folks. I'm going to just rest on reflecting on the weekend, really. It seems so far away when we were at Value Voters, given the news what's going on in the Middle East and the increasing frosty relationship between our country and Russia. It's a bit unsettling as we end the show tonight, folks. And I think, and I am sorry to say this, it's going to get worse before it gets better, Russ. And I'm sorry to end on a down note, but we want to end on a high note. I believe there might be some new change here in Brooklyn, New York. Why don't you break that news, Russ?
Real quick, I know this is hyper-local, but the Brooklyn Republican Party today has elected a new old chair to head it up, Dr. Arnaldo Ferraro. Congratulations. Outgoing chairman Craig Eaton, great job. I love you, my brother, and I had a blast.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for us here behind enemy lines. Time to shut it down, my brother. What do you say?
Jesus, shut it down.
And that's the way to end it. After a recap of Value Voters, we are out of here. Our position's been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. Part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2015. Back in 7 days. Out.